do this for months at a time. Because nowadays, you don't have to leave your house to work, because so much work can be done on the internet that if you wanted to have a career where you never left your home, you could do it. So if this is possible, what we find is it's far, far less likely that you are forced to confront people who disagree with you. So while they're easier to find, they're also much easier to ignore. So you end up with these situations in which people who have certain views are now much more able to find people who share those views. And then because of the nature of communication, they are much more able to exclusively talk to people who share those views with them. Does anyone know what this phenomenon is called? Because what happens when these people who share these views talk only to other people who share these views?
Chamber?
Pardon? So it's an echo chamber, and what ends up happening to their views? So imagine you've got 3 people, all of whom, let's go with anti-vaxxing. So do you know what I mean by anti-vaxxing?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the belief that if you get vaccines for your children will get autism. It's based on a scientific study which has been disproved about 6 times, and over again. Like the science is not there, and literally it's just putting your child and every other child physically in danger. And yet, there are huge parts of the, like, certain places in the United States in which the vaccination rates are the same as in, like, rural sub-Saharan Africa. Does anyone know where these locations are? A lot of them? Rich neighborhoods in LA. A lot of parents have believed the technology that their child will get autism. So there are, like, very fancy private schools in Los Angeles for, like, movie stars and these, like loaded, like, you're paying, like, college, like, out-of-state college tuition payments to send your kid to an elementary school, people in these counties who are not getting their children vaccinated. And why? Well, because all of them kind of went in thinking, well, maybe vaccination's bad. I've heard about this story. And who are they talking to? If every one of these kind of believes it, who are they going to be talking to? Other people in their group. And what's going to happen over time? They're going to, if you kind of believe something, and you talk to 17 people who all, so imagine this, if I think, you know what, maybe the Earth is flat. Maybe the Earth is flat, and I talk to 17 people, and all of them say, yeah, you know what, I think you're probably right. I think the Earth probably is flat. And then all of us then talk to more people. What's going to happen over time? Let's say at the beginning I kind of believed it, but a year later, what am I going to believe? Oh, it's a fact. It's a damn certain fact. And this is what's called group polarization. And this is a term that you want to write down just because it's a very useful thing that explains a lot of, like, human interactions. Group polarization. What is a polar, or what is a pole? Where's the North Pole?
On the north side of the end of the world.
The very tippy top end. Where's the South Pole? The other end. Poles are just the ends of things. So like the North Pole is the very tippy top, and the South Pole is the very tippy bottom of the Earth. So group polarization is when members of a group get more extreme views. And the way it comes about is by talking to other people within their group. So if you have a group of people in an echo chamber, where if you are only talking to other people inside, so if you have a group of people who are kind of white supremacists, but the only other people they talk to are other kind of white supremacists, and the only news stories they send each other are white supremacist stories, and all the science experiments they send are bad science that proves white supremacy, over time, they're going to start to think, you know what? All the evidence shows that white supremacy is right, because they aren't ever interacting with any other evidence, and over time, the groups get stronger and stronger and stronger, or farther and farther apart, the views get stronger and stronger. And so this is the other side of the internet. On the one hand, you can talk to each other, but on the other, because we often don't, we end up with much more extreme views. So for instance, just like look at the rise of various political groups or social groups or online phenomena that are able to take off much more so nowadays than they were 50 years ago. So like there is a large number of there are a lot of people today who think the Earth is flat. Like that is a non-negligible group of people. There are flat earthers. Like you can find them, and they have YouTube channels with millions of views.
Yeah.
You can find them. They are there. I'm sorry to tell you this. The Earth is not flat. The Earth is round.
Yeah.
It is round. Like, you can see it's round.
I mean, well, Professor, I'm not gonna argue with you right now about that. I'm just saying. I don't know if it's round. I just definitely know it can't be flat.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, round is actually, the fact of the matter, it's not perfectly round. Like, let's be clear. The nature of spinning and the fact that it's going around the sun is actually a little lopsided. Like, it's kind of like an ellipse and gets a little smushed. But it is certainly not a disc.
Yeah, definitely not that.
But it is not a flat piece of paper. And yet people in this world strongly believe this and make YouTube channels with millions of viewers, enough so that NBA players talk about it sometimes.
The ground is flat.
Yeah. Even there, it's not. Don't get me started. But it gets me really, or like anti-vaxxing. And these are the sorts, like, the round earth one is not actually causing that many problems, it's just annoying. But the anti-vaxxing is like literally causing children to get sick.
I feel like no, the earth thing is causing a little bit of problem because like on Facebook I see people post stuff like about little kids learning about like space and astronauts and stuff, and parents are like, oh my god, this is like brainwashing, take your child out of public school, they're teaching you this.
Oh yeah, okay, so that's actually a really good point. If you have parents who are believing these things, and then you have, this confronting the science which says, no, like, look at the horizon, or like, look at the fact that all of our bridges have to be built with the Earth's,
I literally heard that somebody in the Facebook comment section was like, literally at their only point, they were like, the word firmament is used 9 times in the whatever, like,
in the Bible?
Yeah.
In the Bible.
Yeah, but like, I don't know if it was the whole Bible or just like...
No, it's Genesis.
Also, if you ever want, like, if you're ever having an argument about scripture with somebody, and somebody's saying that X shouldn't be allowed because X is written not to be allowed in the Bible or some scripture, generally, just one thing to keep in mind is with any sort of scripture, you can always find another passage which says something else. Yes, it's true that there are parts of the Bible, like random bits, which say like homosexual sex shouldn't be allowed. But there are also parts of the Bible that say things like if 2 men get into a fight and a woman tries to stop it, and in the process of trying to stop it, she accidentally grabs one of them by the testicles, the punishment, she has to have her hand cut off. That is an actual passage from the Bible. Also, you cannot have a tattoo. That is said in the Bible. Like, these are so if you're going to go, you got to look at the scripture as a whole. Like, I'm not saying anything wrong with using scriptural arguments. Just choose your arguments properly and make sure that your only evidence is not the scripture, because there can be problems with that. It gets a little more complicated. Now, again, I don't want to say like you shouldn't ever point to scripture, because I don't think there's been a good argument that you cannot. I've never seen a perfect argument for or against God. Like, it's just like an open question. So we're going off the rails here, but whatever. Well.
Yeah, I think we was getting back to with the Earth being round. What was I was to make a point.
Don't let anyone convince you the Earth isn't round. It's round. Well, it's lumpy, but it's not flat.
Prior to talking about that, we were making a point about something when we were talking about that.
But yeah, it does have these downstream effects in which parents who disagree with it start affecting their children's decisions.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Alright, so like, another thing on Twitter, like that's another thing that's going on Twitter, like these whole skeptical, controversial, like, conspiracy beliefs.
So yeah, if you actually look at like modern society, the conspiracy theories have taken off in the past 10 years. Like, there have always been conspiracy theories. The JFK assassination.
Social media, though.
Yeah, so like the JFK assassination was a big one, and people got really interested in it. And was it really?
Was it fact?
Pardon?
Was it true?
No.
Oh.
And the question is, who killed him?
Yeah.
Everyone knows that JFK was assassinated. The question is, the conspiracy theory is that the official story is it was one guy working alone, but the conspiracy theories are, no, it was actually like an inside CIA job because they were mad at JFK at the time, and there's evidence that it was multiple shooters, and so that's the conspiracy.
Because he was rolling around with MLK like he was the boy.
Yeah, so that was but nowadays we have things which are like significantly, one is the evidence for the JFK conspiracy theory, like, whether you believe it or not, whatever you say, there's at least some things you can point to. The evidence that Hillary Clinton was running a child prostitution ring out of the basement of a pizza shop. Did people familiar with Pizzagate? I think it's come up before in this class.
Yeah.
Do people remember what Pizzagate was? Yeah. Okay, so that sort of thing, it was able to take off because of this echo chamber phenomenon, and the fact that if you have a lot of people talking about these things to each other, then it starts to look like, oh goodness, look, it's possible. Like, I've heard 7 people tell me that Hillary Clinton's running a child prostitution ring, and I found it on 3 websites, and nobody's told me otherwise, so here I need to get my gun and go shut down Hillary Clinton's child prostitution ring. And so that's the sort of thing which becomes possible with the internet. And this is why conspiracy theories take off so much, because another thing about human beings is we are biologically designed to try to agree with people around us. Like, this is a thing about us. What? If people around us share our views, like, if you don't ever want to be the only one who doesn't share a view with someone, why? Biologically speaking. Think back through our history. Why is it bad to be the one person out? Why is that sense of shame so strong when there's norm violation? Why is there the push to fit in?
Because if you're not with the herd, then you're in danger.
Yeah, if you, imagine, like, what happens if everyone in your group believes something, and then you say, I don't know about that. Very often, the people who have positions of power in that group aren't happy about it. And nowadays, you can go and find other people to talk to. But back when we lived in caves with bears, if you pissed off someone, they kicked you out of the group, you're gonna die. Like, look at your fingers, look at your teeth. They aren't the biggest. We survive because we're smart and we can work together. But if you are kicked out of the group, you will die. So we've got this biological reason to try to agree with other humans. And you can see this, like, today, it doesn't come up and you're not literally in danger, but think about, like, bullying of children. It's not about physical harm as much as it is making the child feel like they are utterly alone in the social group and no one at the school cares about them and wants to have anything to do with them. And that's, like, the worst part of bullying for children. And, like, if, like, everyone, it hurts to get punched in the face. Nobody likes that. But it's the sense of fear that goes with it, and the sense of being alone, and the sense that nobody has your back. And so children will agree with each other to do things simply to stay a part of the group. And what we see with social groups online is the same sorts of things happen. If you're part of a kind of, like, the main people you talk to on the internet are other fans of something, or other people who share views, and you start to feel like, oh wait, I'm not sure if I agree 100% wholeheartedly with these people on this. Like, you might say, like, oh, I identify as a Republican, but I think there should be gun control. You might start to find, talking to other members of the group, if you want to stay a part of the group, then you better start changing your views on gun control. Because getting kicked out of the group is a scarier proposition. And what ends up happening is you have this, like, ingrained belief that it's better to think the wrong thing together than think the right thing alone for social reasons. And so very often what happens with these conspiracy theories is the reasons that these get off the ground is because you're agreeing with other people in your group and it creates this sense of community. So if you actually, like, I watched a video of, like, why are you a flat earther? Like, it was like a big flat earther conference. And they asked people, like, why are you a flat earther? Does anyone have any guesses for what their main reasons given were?
Their group thing
They literally were saying things like, I just love being a part of this community. And, like, it's just, like, it's so good to find like-minded people here with us.
Like, that's what you're looking for.
And, like, these are the sorts of things where, like, they'll have some general scientific fact, like, well, the Earth looks kind of flat, and then they combine it with, and there's so many other people out there who feel the same as me. And, like, that is the motivating factor here. And so this is what we are able to do, and this sort of bringing together is possible because of the internet.
Well, first of all, I think I can see why those flatline thinkers can't get in depth with any of those thoughts.
Yeah.
But really, what I wanted to say was, like, the reason why I feel like I wanted to make a point about, I think he was saying, I don't know.
It's okay. There's a lot of names. And this is the one thing that's tough about these classes is they're larger and we only meet once a week,
Yeah.
so it's very hard to.
Get everybody's name. But you were saying something about, like, it has, like, a positive aspect to it about people being able to come together, the echo chamber.
Yeah.
And people coming together to figure out the truth in what they're saying. But this is the problem, though, because it has that greatest potential to be positive, but also has that greater potential to be negative
And this,
too,
I think, is
because if people start to like, I remember I was reading on Twitter, like they keep arguing on Twitter about how to do pre-algebra, like, or like algebra, like hard, like, and what's the correct way to do PEMDAS, right?
Yeah.
And it's like you got people that's arguing about it, so almost to the point where it's like, if they don't figure it out, there's probably gonna be like, if you don't learn in school, it's just gonna get to a point where everybody believes it's the right way, is what's gonna be the right way at that point.
And I think, and this is the thing which was Gleb's point about the echo chambers. The issue is that, on the one hand, because of like the Mark Zuckerberg point of if you want to break out of your echo chamber and you want a view from the other side, it is easier now. And so if you're somebody who's like, I've heard my whole life, like say I grew up in a racist family, and my family tells me like, these people are bad, these people are not good, like blah, blah, blah. And then I meet somebody who has a different skin color than me, and we get along great. And I decide, you know what? I want to learn more about how my parents are wrong. If you're motivated to do it, you can now get that information like never before. Or you find out like, okay, so I kind of think this new white supremacist stuff is crazy, and I just want to make sure, let me go double check. You can now go and read and see like, yes, indeed, this is a little bit crazy. The downside of this, though, unless you're motivated, and you actively have to be motivated, it's very hard to get push yourself across the boundary. And that's the if you want to stay in your world, like if you want to just watch cat videos all day, you can now do that. And the downside of that is that if you already have views about things and you spend all your days looking at cat videos, those views will stay your views. You have to be motivated to use this information. And one of the problems is people are not motivated in the right ways. So, if this is one thing we're seeing, this sort of group polarization where people are literally for like social demographic talking to each other reasons, coming up with views and holding them and pulling their kids out of school, not getting their kids getting shots because they think their kids are going to get sick. What's the bigger picture worry? If communities are being defined in these ways, for good or worse, and one of the good things is that we're able to find people who we agree with and share views, but also on the other side, people who share our views and then get more extreme. Where does this come up? Where are the implications of this practically? Where does it affect in your life? What sorts of things are changed if this is what's happening, where we have groups getting polarized? We have people holding views which are fundamentally different from other people's views. We have people not talking to each other as much and just, using Twitter to yell at each other. Where does this come up? Think about in your everyday lives, where are the impacts you see of this?
I think my example will be irrelevant, but I think that there's a problem between fictional and real. And sometimes oftentimes we try to think about fictional as real, and them our own biases. In this regard, that may be dangerous in some regards.
Yeah.
In other regards, this is just suppose. Let's say I'm going to move our conversation a little bit and talk about the online games, for example. Well, kids are just acting as if they're assuming roles, but in truth they don't mean anything mean. Then you can find some oblivious user who may be hateful or really just hiding behind an identity, and he may encourage others to act like him.
Yeah, and so so there's a lot of ways in which this comes together, a lot of things like we talked about in other classes. So one issue is, if we're going to get around in the world, you need to know what the world is like. Like there is an impulse, if you don't know what's in front of you, what's gonna happen? Like literally quite physically. I'm gonna walk into it and that hurts. And if you spend all day walking into things, you're not gonna get much done. So, in the same way, we need to know what exists in this world in a general sense. And so if you don't know what the world is like to an accurate enough degree, you are not gonna survive. Like if you think this word spells milk, you're gonna have some problems. This was a problem. When I was a small child, I drank some bug poison because I couldn't read yet and I thought it was water. So like these are the sorts of things that I ended up spitting it out. I was fine, but I still remember discovering I was doing like the hooked on phonics and like it took me a while to realize, oh, that's poison. I shouldn't drink that. So yeah, these are the sorts of things that can happen if you don't know. So one issue is if you have a lot of people saying things to you like vaccines are going to hurt you and your children, and you have other people who are coming along and saying no, they aren't. It becomes very unclear what is real and what is fiction. And if everyone in your social group is telling you, all those people who are saying vaccines are fine, they're lying to you. And you end up having this battle not about like what should be done to vaccinate our children, but rather something much more general like, why should we vaccine at all? What is the point of it? Is vaccination real? And it ends up that there becomes this battle over what's right and what's real and what's fake as opposed to what's right and what's wrong. And so it just like makes coming to decisions impossible on these sorts of things. And also, tied in with this, is because these sorts of groups are able to communicate and talk to each other, in those chances in which people in this group communicate with people in this group, or when people in this group are just acting how they generally act here, say in an online gaming community, very often people will not have harmful effects in mind. Like sometimes when somebody says something which is genuinely hurtful and harmful on the internet, they don't mean to do it. But just because of the nature of this polarization and only talking to other in-group members, what ends up happening is people end up saying things which do end up causing harm. And so on the one hand, on the one hand, this side needs to be more careful about like what they're saying, but also just by the nature of us as people, there's also an awareness of like, where is this coming from? I mean, in certain clear cases, like, oh my God, let's kill all people of blank origin, like it's pretty clear, like, no, that might be a funny joke in your friend group, but let's, don't say that out loud. And also change your friend group, but that's less likely to happen about you now.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I think, oh, you gotta get back to me. You gotta get back to me.
Don't worry about it. We're gonna answer this one question, then we'll take our break. So, the biggest practical implications for this sort of group polarization.
Okay, sorry.
Fire away.
I'm like that,
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Alright,
I'm the same way.
Alright, so I was gonna say, cause you asked like where in like society like do you see these type of things, but I wasn't gonna say like it's not like an actual place, but like I think social convention that I see this a lot is peer pressure. Like
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's like what is the driving factor. Like
Yeah, and this is exactly, so peer pressure is like the driving force of group polarization in a lot of ways. Because as we've said before, like the #1 way to get a child to do something is to get their friends to make fun of them if they don't do it. And like we've all been there. We've all been there where like it's really hard if everyone else in the room, especially if they